This week on Africa Weekly, we begin in northwestern Nigeria, where gold mining continues despite an attempted ban by the government, risk of lead poisoning and the constant threat of armed groups. Then we head to South Africa's Kalahari region, where extreme drought is driving down tourism and forcing employers to cut jobs. But first, let's take a look at the stories that made the headlines this week. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir and rebel leader Riek Machar have agreed to form a unity government, a long-delayed step towards ending 6 years of war. The president confirmed that they'd agreed to a joint government for the third time since independence in 2011, an experiment which has ended in disaster twice before. Meanwhile, a UN human rights probe found warring parties deliberately starved civilians during the conflict and also uncovered significant political corruption.
Millions of South Sudanese have been deliberately deprived of access to basic services, and many deliberately starved, while up to 80% of monthly non-oil revenues are unaccounted for, having been diverted from official accounts by the country's politicians.
Police will charge Lesotho's Prime Minister Thomas Tabane with the murder of his estranged wife, Lipolelo. The 80-year-old is accused of complicity in the shooting of his then-wife in June 2017, just days before he was sworn into office. Tu's current First Lady, who he married 2 months after Lipolelo's death, has also been charged with the murder. In a nationally televised address, Tabane said he will step down as Prime Minister by the end of July, not mentioning the charges against him.
This decision has been the hardest to make in my over half a century career in the public service. I've been battling with this idea for more than a year now, particularly because serving my people and seeing them prosper is all that I live for.
Burundi's Truth and Reconciliation Commission says it has unearthed the remains of more than 6,000 people slaughtered in ethnic violence almost 3 decades ago. Exhumation started on the Ruvubu River just outside the new capital, Gitega, at the start of the year. Massacres and civil war killed hundreds of thousands of Burundians since independence in 1962. However, the country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission chief says that the time has not yet come to speak about the ethnicity of the victims buried on the banks of the Ruvubu. As Togo's president Faure Gnassingbé approaches the end of 3 terms in power, he's insisted he is not a dictator. This comes as the country of 8 million prepared to vote in an election.
A president can't keep up with everything that's going on. It's not that I'm getting sloppy. It's about image. But if you have the time to look at the situation in our country, reading the press and so on, you can see that. Quite honestly, you'll see that sometimes those assessments are exaggerated. In any case, I do not feel like a dictator.
Critics say the opposition has faced a crackdown to crush a wave of protests, but Gnassingbé claims such accusations are more due to reputation than reality.
Zamfara State is one of Nigeria's richest areas in terms of mineral wealth. And yet, the people here in the country's northwest are among its poorest. Mining is one of the few reliable sources of income, but it's high-risk work that brings scant reward. These workers earn just a couple of dollars a day.
I need this work to survive, as I couldn't find any jobs in town. My current boss gave me a call. He said, "Come and join us in this business." And I started working for him.
Mines are such a key part of the local economy that armed groups terrorize the region in an unceasing fight over natural resources. And the miners are their target. In exchange for being allowed to continue their trade, so-called bandits force them to share their profits and to do their bidding. Last year, the Nigerian government introduced a regional ban on mining, hoping to curb the armed groups, but people have carried on regardless. As well as working illegally, gold miners also run the risk of lead poisoning. This toxic metal is abundant in the earth of Zamfara. Its vapours escape into the air during mining, often near residential areas. Each week, this clinic treats children suffering from its effects.
He was at a young age, at about the age of 2, he was diagnosed with lead toxicity, and we've seen his neurological condition gradually deteriorate since that time. There's been loss of hearing, there's been recurrent seizures and restlessness, and so far there has shown some improvement, but still needs more care.
In some patients, the levels of lead in the blood are 250 times higher than the limit tolerated by many doctors.
The way to address this once and for all is to ensure, again, that exposure is completely curtailed. No residential activity when it comes to mineral processing, and that all the miners that are mining should practice good hygiene, occupational hygiene, and industrial hygiene, and better mining practices.
In the past decade, more than 500 children have died from lead poisoning. Though officially banned, mining looks set to remain a vital part of this region's economy. And much more remains to be done to regulate safety standards in the industry and to end the ongoing conflict surrounding access to the mines.
More than 1,000 animals have died on this Northern Cape game farm over the last few months, as South Africa's entire Kalahari region is being crippled by one of the worst droughts locals have ever seen.
We are trying to go on as we are at the moment, but it's only going to be so long before all our resources are out, and we don't have any money left to do what we do.
Turu Lodge, like so many others in the area, is heavily reliant on international hunters to keep the business afloat. But recently, none have arrived.
Unfortunately, the drought forced us to place all our bookings on hold. We can't book a guy coming from overseas, having the safari feeling and trying to give him the best safari he ever had. But the animals that's here are very skinny, and is dying.
They currently spend around $14,000 a month just on feed, trying to keep the animals they have left alive. This job goes to one of the few remaining staff members, Paul. He has been on the farm for 28 years and always depended on tips from visitors to supplement his income. But this year, he struggled just to get his kids ready for school.
I needed to borrow money this year just to buy them books and stuff. The years before I had the money. Things are tight, much worse than before.
A few kilometers away, lifelong commercial farmer Johan Steenkamp admits he can't keep going on like this past March.
Our animals are really suffering. We have lost many animals. At this stage, I have between 30 and 40% of my herd left. Everything else either died or we had them slaughtered.
Even as the region enters its much anticipated rainy season, the farms and their animals will need more than a year to recover, and many simply don't have that long.
South Africa's Springboks and Rugby World Champions were named Team of the Year at the Laureus Sports Award in Berlin. The team beat Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool and the US women's football team. But despite the win, it was business as usual for the team.
Winning the World Cup, obviously, and winning the Laureus Awards means so much. And then I think the big thing for us is just to continue where we left off and not drop.
And finally, Niger's Tuaregs celebrate the Air Festival in the northern Agadez region, featuring traditional music, camel races and crafts. Since 2001, the festival has taken place to promote tourism and the local culture. Despite concerns about Islamic extremism in the region, this display of Tuareg traditions continues to attract hundreds of visitors. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.